Hello and welcome to this video of a private server called Solo Kargath, which features the module Playerbots. If you're looking at wanting to solo dungeons and raids and quests even with your own party of bots, then this is probably the right place for you. And I'm going to show you some tips and tricks and some basic commands on how to get set up with the Playerbots module and show you how it works and show you how smart the bots can be as well. So there are two kinds of bots on the Playerbots module. You have the Playerbots, which is the characters that you create on this screen, and these are bots that you will feature in your gameplay. And then there are also random bots, which are random bots in the real world on the server who roam around, and there are thousands of them, and you can add them to your raid or party. You can gear them up as well. So for example, as you can see here, that you can only have 10 characters, right? So if you want to raid 25, then you either create 2 more accounts, which you can do, that's up to you, or you can just invite random bots, and that works equally as good. So I would recommend starting off with 5 characters, so you can have a party of 5, since you can only really level with 5 anyway. So I would create 5 characters, and then once you're ready, log into the game. And some basic commands straight out of the gate is, I guess the first question is, how do you control your experience rate? This one's pretty basic. When you log into your character, you simply do a command called .xp, and I believe it should give you some commands here. So if we do .xp view, we can see my current XP rate is ×3. If you want to do, the highest by the way is 10, so if you want to set your XP to 10, then you do .xp set 10. And an important note, you need to do this on every single one of your characters that you create on the login screen. So log into each one, do the set XP rate command, and then once you have all your characters set to the correct XP rate, then you can now add them to your party. Now to do that, there are 2 ways. You can do Playerbots bot add, and then you can type in the name of the bot. It might take a while, it seems a bit slow. So that's one way, and it should come kind of shortly. And the other one is Playerbots bot add account, and then you type in the name of your account, and it will add every bot that you have on your character login screen, and it will put it straight into your raid. So that's 2 ways to summon your bots. And then there's a useful tool here which is on the Discord, which is this add-on control interface for the bot module. This has some useful tools. You can do all this in the chat commands, however it's clearly so much easier with this. So this is what yours would look like straight out the bat. So you have your summon button, which will summon all your bots to you. That's great. Group revive and group release, honestly, never really had to use those. This tells your party to drink and eat food. Quest control, really useful. If they have a quest in their log and you just right click it, it'll get rid of it. Like that, quest removed. Main control panel, this is very useful. I'll come back to this in a second. Unit control, this is every bot in your party. Sometimes this can get bugged out, and more so if you have more than 10 bots. You should have a, in fact, let's see. I'll add some more bots. I'll give it some time to populate, but as we wait for that, you can do individual commands here for your bots. You can summon individual ones, but again, you never really have to do that. This is a useful one if you seem to think in your party when you're doing dungeons and raids, you have your mage or your healer sat at the back and they're nowhere near with you and they're drinking and eating constantly when they don't really have to, you can disable this. So if you left click it, it's disabled. Same goes for looting. If you are going too fast and your bots are stuck behind looting, then you can disable looting. Gathering, self-explanatory. You enable that and you have professionals on them for gathering and they will do that. Inventory. If you click this, you have a multitude of functions here. You can force them to drop items. I've never really had to use this because it will just straight up essentially delete them. Trade items is interesting. Say if they get an epic BOE item, you can get them to trade it to you. Use items, you can get them to use flasks and elixirs and so on and so on. And then equipped items. Sometimes it bugs out and you might find that a mage has a relic for some reason. They're trying to equip it. It's not perfect by no means, but you can essentially come into their inventory and force them to basically remove it either by dropping or by creating a vendor and selling that item. So that's two ways you can do that. What else do we have? We have their talents and their spellbook. You don't really have to use it that much in here. You can simply view their talents in the character pane here. But for the talents, I never really have to touch that. You shouldn't really have to touch it either. But it's there if you need it. As we can see, you can see their talents. But again, never really have to use that. Spellbook is useful. Let's let me pick the mage. For the mage, we know they have mage pools. So if you right click one of these, you can put them onto your taskbar. And then what you can do is you can get your mage to create your portal for you, which it will do here. So useful. Certain classes have useful spells for you, so put them on there, such as also the heroism. There's nothing worse than when your shaman bot keeps casting hero on trash balls. So if you go back into the spell book and we look at, we try and find heroism quickly. Of course I can't find it, but essentially you would untick heroism so they no longer auto cast it, drag it onto your bar and you can use it whenever you want. So that's good and useful. Now to go back, so as we can see here, I only have 10 characters on here. However, I've got a whole raid, so why doesn't it work? Well, sometimes you have to reload your UI. So if we reload, we fix the issue, but we shall see. Alright, so if we go back to this now, okay, see how there's an arrow here. Now we can cycle through. We can also filter it by class. So if I want to select only paladins, I can see I've got one healer, 2 tanks, and a DPS. As an important note, if you're trying to forcefully change their roles through here, it may not work, and you may have mixed results. So let's move on to the next part, I suppose, which is the talents. Let's say your tank, you want him to be an actual tank. You'll do talent spec list, so dot talent spec list when you're targeting them. Okay, that doesn't work. I thought that was. Oh, is it talent? Sorry. No. Interesting. My bad. There's no period in it. It's just simply talent spec list. That'll show you the talents available, like the different talent trees. You've got Rect, Prot, and Holy. And then if you want, let's say, him to be a Prot, you'll do talent spec Prot PvE. So once again, there's no full stops or periods in there. It's just simply whispering them. And then he'll say, or she will say, picking Prot PvE. And then that's what their talents will change to, and that's all fine and dandy. Now, there is, when you do that, say if you're swapping them from tank to healer, then you'll need to also do maintenance, which will basically re-enchant all their gear. It will fix any talents that they may have. So that's useful to know. But a caveat to the maintenance command is when you use the maintenance command, there is a risk that you will wipe their inventory. This very seldom happens. I've had it happen a couple of times to me myself, um, at various different levels. I'm not quite sure exactly what triggers it to wipe your inventory, but it can happen. So please understand that. And I would suggest that you clear their inventory by logging onto each character, just cleaning out their bags, anything important, put it in the bank, come back on your main, and then have everyone do maintenance. But it's a great command. It'll enchant all their gear, like I said. So really, really useful. Then the other one is auto gear. So auto gear, essentially, as it implies, it will auto gear your bots. Now you can do this at a character level by whispering, same as the maintenance one, or you can do it raid wide if you really want to. I'm not going to because it'll probably mess everyone up. But it can only go up to a 200 item level on the gear at level 80. The reason being is because obviously that'll make it way too easy. If you also gear straight to heroic Ice Crown Citadel gear, then what's the point? Gearing is pretty easy. So keep that in mind. They'll get you up to 200 item level, and that's enough for you to get started in some basic raids. And I want to say that's essentially it for the basic commands and how to get going. When it comes to questing with your bots, you don't have to get the objective complete on every single character in your party. And what I would say is I would pick free-for-all loot and disable looting on your bots. That's what I would do personally. And then let's say this mob here drops a quest item. If your bots attack it first, that quest item most likely will not drop. You have to get the first hit. So if you're a ranged character, that's fine. You can just fire an arrow. That's tagged for me. So when it drops a quest item, I can loot it and it'll drop for me. But like I said, if you don't get that first hit, then you may find yourself thinking, why are these quest items never dropping? That's why. So make sure you keep note of that because that's quite important. And then let's say you complete all your quests in your log, they're all complete. You need to go hand them in. As long as your bots are semi near you, when you hand it in, they'll also hand it in. Very rarely does it bug out. Most of the time it does work. So question's pretty good. What else do we have? So that was question. Let's talk about the random bots now. So let me leave party. Oh, by the way, also say when you leave your party or your bots are around, you can simply just do like the log out command, and all your bots are gone. And then you see all these are here still. You can just simply reload your URL. So while we wait for this, I'll start talking about the random bots. Random bots work slightly different. So, like I said, these are random bots in the world. Now, to get random bots, it's a slightly different process. So, on the add-on control panel, there is this button here which is disabled by default. So, if you click the create a switch, you'll get another icon here. And now we have a plethora of different buttons to use. So, basically one for each class. Let's say you want a party of paladins. So all these paladins are now in my group. I'll summon them to me. 9 times out of 10, the characters should gear to your item level. So I'm basically Nax geared right now. So most paladins in my party now should be similar geared, which they appear to be. However, I have one, as you can see here, who is uber geared, and if I'm trying to play the game quote unquote legitly and I'm trying to do Nax in Nax gear, then as you can tell from this guy, he's probably going to make my raid far easier. Now, I'm not suggesting you do it, however, there's nothing stopping you from doing it. You can simply just keep creating bots until you get really overpowered and well geared ones like this best in slot Ret Paladin, and it'll make your life easy. You can go clear the content however you like. No one's going to stop you doing that. That's completely up to you. But for the sake of this, I'm going to show you how to bring him down back to a item level similar to me. So back in the create switch, you have this auto initialize button. If I target him and I left click it, now he's geared to my item level. So down, my UI might be too small for you to read, but it says the gear score limit for item level is a max of 216 overall, and that's what his gear is now going to be. So that's that. Now, another command is if you want to do it raid wide, you can simply right click the maintenance button and it'll do all of them at once. So that's the entire raid. So just be careful of that, because there's been times where I've tried to select just one and I've accidentally right clicked and then my entire raid has been basically maintenanced. Now, let's say this character you have is currently a healer and you want him to be a tank. As I said earlier, you don't really want to do it in this unit control option because it might not do it correctly and it will bug out. So I would target the one I want, and I would essentially technically you have two ways. You can simply tell him to go talent spec prop PvE, and it'll say he'll pick prop PvE, and maybe you can do the. So I'll try maintenance first, see what happens. But not so, as we can see, the gear is still technically holy. You can auto gear him, and it will basically swap out the majority of his gear to a max item level of 200, so not great either. So my recommendation is to use the auto initialize button and just keep left clicking it until you get a prop paladin geared like this. Kind of good on the first go. Sometimes it might take a few clicks, but that's how I would do it. And then I'll just make sure that he's spec for prop. Sometimes it may bug out, very rarely. So that's my recommendation on how to set up a composition of your party or raid. Just inspect them and make sure we've got a healer there. This guy is a prop paladin, so maybe if I want him to be ret. Okay, click them, there you go, he's ret now. And then same for this guy, I want him to be ret. Good example, didn't do it the first go, he's healer. Let's do it again. Now he's a tank. Let's do it again. Now he's a ret. Perfect. So I've got 2 rets, 1 tank and 1 healer. Perfect. And then they should all work as you want them to. Now, some commands you can do from this chat. You have the stay command. So if I say stay in the party chat or the raid chat, then they should all stay. If I want them all to come to me, you can say summon, or you can click the summon button there and they'll come to you. If you want them to follow, then just type follow and they'll follow you. That's also a command here as well. Let's say there's a flee button. Let's say you want them to basically stop what they're doing. Maybe you're doing a dungeon achievement or a raid achievement and you need them to stop DPS, and you can basically tell them to flee. But then I would tell my healer to follow, but she'll keep my healer actually healing me so no one dies. So that's a little general useful tip. What else do we have? We have, you can assign your tank to basically pull, so only your tank will go. That's quite useful, say if you're having issues with aggro and whatnot. And you've got formation control, which I rarely use, but it's there. What else? You have this option, which is the passive mode, so that's the default one. And then you also have this one, which is grind mode, which is very cool. See, I didn't do anything, and now he's off on his own thing, and he's probably gonna go and kill all the ads around in the local area. This is useful for, let's say, you want to be lazy and maybe you're doing Ice Crown Citadel farming. maybe they're not quite engaging as much as they should do because they're really low level. But if you go into ICC and you want to trash farm, click grind mode, they'll just do it all automatically. So quite useful. So that's in terms of the basic commands that I can think of. There are some useful macros you can create. I recommend getting the Super Duper Macro add-on so you can make larger macros for raid wide. For example, I have a buff command for every single raid member and also a reset command. So what's a reset command? A reset command is, let's say you clear Nax and you want to do it again. Rather than waiting like you would normally in retail WoW until the next Wednesday or whatever day it may be on the reset, you can just force reset. So if I which one's my I've already forgotten which one's my reset. I'm just going to drag it here quickly. Let's say I want to reset this guy. Well, it's going to reset everybody because I've made a super duper macro. So if I simply press that button now, it unbounds every raid save that they currently have, and then you can re-enter that instance. Now, if you wanted to do your own command, that command is simply .ins space un space all, and it basically unbinds their instance saves. Now, the other command, which is incredibly useful, which you can semi-class as cheating in a way because it buffs them with uber world buffs, is the #buff command. So this has to be done in the say chat, not by or raid, and then simply type #buff, target the person you want. Unfortunately, you cannot do this raid wide, so you have to make a macro, hence why I have a macro. And straight away he has some insane buffs. If I do it to myself, you'll be able to see which ones exactly. Like there's so many. Like I said, it's semi-classed as cheating in a way. However, sometimes the bots aren't perfect, and it does in fact make your raid slightly harder. So it kind of balances it out in some ways. So recommend when you're doing raids, maybe for the first time, then use this and basically buff them all in one go, like that. Really useful to have, but that's for you to decide. If you want a harder game, harder raid, then just don't use the buffs. Simple as that. What other macros are useful? A revive macro, which again is semi-cheating because you simply can just revive your bots as many times as you want. However, there are some times where you kind of need that. So some raid bosses, more specifically heroics and hard mode, they're not entirely optimized yet for bots and they're not fully supported. So you may find it incredibly difficult and almost near impossible to actually accomplish. And sometimes the bots are just a bit dumb as well. So a good example maybe Syndragosa on heroic in ICC. They often get hit by the breath and they may die. So you can just target your bots and revive them. It's as simple as that, and that is just .revive and you target the bot. Now you can create a super duper macro and revive the entire raid all in one go. I don't do that because I don't feel like I need to, and when you obviously revive everyone in your raid all in one go, then all the threat will drop, and other important mechanics in the encounter will kind of reset in a way, so I opt not to use that. Another useful macro is a summon macro. This may be a bit convoluted, however I find that it works more consistently. Sometimes when you summon a bot and like let's say they're stuck in some purple nasty stuff on the floor, it may not work. So this one I find works more consistently for me. So if I want to summon him, then I'll just tag him, I press this macro and it works. And then my other macro, which is essentially I guess the last one, is just simply setting a skull on an enemy. If I set a skull on it, then all my bots should actually go and attack it. They were all on stay, they were a bit bugged, so I had them followed to kind of engage their bot mechanics again. So that's a useful one to know, is the skull. they'll target anything. If I do over there, they're gonna go follow over there. It's as simple as that. What else do we have? A useful tip to know when traversing the world, and let's say you're going to a raid instance. I guess I'll try and demonstrate it now. Let's have a look. So if I go to my Hearthstone and go to the flight point, sometimes the bots will get stuck on a flight point. If they're too close, then they will simply also follow you on the flight point. And because we have instant flight, they do not. So they will be stuck on the flight point, and you may find yourself waiting 10 minutes until land again. But there's a way around it, so I'm going to show you now. Let's say we want to fly to Booty Bay. For me, it's instant. But if we look at the map, we're going to find that they're all flying now. And if I try and summon them, it's probably not going to work. Okay, it worked. So that was a bad example. But let's say it doesn't work. And it's because they're stuck flying, which this happens 9 times out of 10. I'm very surprised that this actually summoned them. If you click summon and they do not come to you and they're stuck flying, simply just do the /camp or logout command. And then when you are happy that they're all gone, simply do the .playerbots bot add and an asterisk, which basically reinvites everyone that was in your raid or party. And then give it a few seconds, they will come back. And then you'll be able to summon them to you then. So that's a useful tip to have, because I often find myself frustrated that they're stuck flying, or maybe they're in a zone that they're stuck in. Very useful to know. The /camp will essentially reset them. That took a long time, but they're back now, so that's good. What else do we have in terms of basic commands? I want to say that that's essentially all of them. That's a lie. There is a command for a vendor. So if you type .vendor, it'll summon a repair bot vendor kind of thing, and you can sell your stuff there. So that's great. And then you also have the banker. So you can summon your bank, so you keep all your lovely legendaries. And then you also have the .mog command, so you can bring out your personal transmog on command. And let's say you don't want to log out and go back into your other party bots, to your player bots, should I say, to clear out their inventory. You can technically left click the vendor, open their inventory. I can't because these are not my bots, these are random bots. And you can open their inventory, click the sell button, and you can click their items and clean up via that way. But I'm more leaning towards just quickly logging into the bots I want and clean it out manually. That's just my preference, but you can do that. Now for raid difficulty with your bots, obviously it's kind of dependent on your gear. However, more often than not, if you kind of do the raids in progressive chronological order, then you should not have that many troubles. Right now on this account, I've done it progressively. I capped myself at level 60. I did all the raids at level 60. I then did all the content available that I could do at level 60, i.e. getting the legendary, sulfurous, whatnot. And then I uncapped my experience rate, and then I went to level 70. I capped it at 70, and I vice versa. I did the exact same thing. I cleared all of TBC, got all the content, all the achievements. Bit of a completionist, but it's just an idea thrown out there. If you want to follow the same steps as what I did, it makes it more fun. Because as a reference, my first account, I went straight to ICC, heroic 25 man, and it got boring pretty quick. But that's just me. So this fresh account, kind of did it from square one. So I'd recommend that, but you play it however you want. That's completely up to you. But back to like the raid difficulty, all the bots, as far as we know, that there is a list of some bosses that simply cannot be done. If there are portals that you have to click, then more often than not, it will not be doable because the bots don't quite follow portal mechanics and click on objects and whatnot. But for the most part, I would say 95% of everything is doable with bots, and they will do the mechanics pretty well. They are a lot smarter than you think they may be. So clearing content is pretty easy, and if you do it progressively, you shouldn't have any issues. And gearing them up, when an item drops, if you have a group loot, then the bots will need on an item that is an upgrade to them. So you can track it through group loot if you really want. However, if they need and you need, it will automatically go to you. Just keep that in note. So you still have control even if you have group loot. Or you can simply do it old school, do master loot, and you basically throw it in their inventory yourself. Once it goes in their inventory, they'll auto equip it. So that's how you gear up the bots. But I would start with maybe me personally, I would create 10 of my own characters so I can get a 10-man raid composition going, and then I would do 10-man myself first. And then if you want 25-man, you just use a creator switch and add an extra 15 bots, and you have a 25-man group, and then you can clear 25-man. So that's how you do the raids. You do have to travel to each raid. Uh, that's There currently are no instant teleports to the raids. However, with that said, every character once you have riding skill has a mount, this flying black Karaji battle tank, and you can fly anywhere in Azeroth. So at I think I don't know, can't remember, is it level 20 or 30? You get the mount, you can fly. And if you're in a dungeon or a raid where you can fly, or so if you can mount, then you can fly. So Zul'Farrak, for example, the level 44 dungeon. The last gate may get bugged and it won't open. Just jump on this and you can fly over it. Simple as. So this is useful to know. You can fly around wherever you want. Every character has this. The world may bug out because it's not designed for Azeroth flying. That was revamped in Cataclysm, so just keep that in mind. Professions. You can have every single profession available on one character. So as we can see, I've got most professions. The rate at which they level up, I believe, is ×2. So it's a bit quicker. And I think that's basically everything I can think of. If there's anything else that I've missed, then we can maybe cover that in a separate, more detailed video. For example, maybe some like raid tactics and using the RTSD switch, where you can essentially have your like tanks move to a position, or your DPS move over there. This is a useful tool, but that it's quite in depth, so it's not easy to just describe in a few minutes. You don't really have to use that much, but there's one boss in particular of my memory where you do need it, which is Thaddeus in Natsramas, where you have to split the platform. But it's pretty easy, and I have another video already on that one on how to do that boss. But anyway, I hope this video was useful. It's not perfect by any means. I'm not a professional content creator, so apologies if I repeated myself in places. Also, if any parts did not make sense, I'm sorry for that. But hopefully there's enough information in this video to help you get going on this server, Solo Karga. It's really fun. Right now there's not that many people playing, but then again it is 9 AM for me, so I do find more people playing throughout the day, but it's not completely dead, and there is an active player base, and the Discord is active as well. So if you have questions, just throw it in the Discord. Anyway, that's me. Thanks, and I hope this helps.